Hey y'all, it's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Hello, friends and fans. Welcome back to Peace, Love, and Baseball. I'm your host, K-Bird Tweets. Thank you for joining me for another episode today. We have another team feature coming your way. And of course, we're going to kick things off with This Week in Peace, Love, and Baseball, as we are all waiting for Scott Boras to set his clients free and I allow them to sign and make all of the money. Not a ton of super exciting free agent news, but of course, if you're looking for that, I'm going to invite you to head over to Bourbon and Baseball, where I'm talking about all the free agent signings from top to bottom, all the hot stove action, and more surrounding baseball with Susie at Bourbon and Baseball. So if you're looking for that, we are keeping you up to date with that. We are eagerly awaiting more and more news. But here on Peace, Love, and Baseball, it is Atlanta Braves week, and we are going to hear from lifelong Braves fan and one of my favorite Twitter follows at For the Rach, capital A. Rachel on Twitter is going to join us in our team feature interview today. But first, let's get ready for this week in Peace, Love, and Baseball. As part of our Peace and Love, part of This Week in Peace, Love, and Baseball, I want to talk about a topic of conversation that came up between me and my family this week that just made me think about a lot of different things. And I thought it would be something that would be kind of fun and interesting to bring up here with you today. Just get us the wheels turning. And I want to talk about identity, specifically individual identity. And I know you're like, Kelsey, don't get all existential here on me. I hear you. So I'm going to keep it brief, keep it specific. More specifically, I guess, how to live your life for yourself while maintaining relationships that are important to you and are very much a part of your identity. Knowing who you are and what you really want can be tricky enough as it is. There's already so many outside factors that have nothing to do with directly with relationships or anything, like, making enough money versus what you really would want to do if you could be spending your time doing anything. There are, things as simple as that dictate a lot of how we spend our time and who we feel like we are day to day. There are things like the constantly ever evolving world around us that, for each of us, it's different in so many ways. So there's all of that. But it is important to be surrounded by people who encourage us to be true to who we are as individuals, and for us to be the kind of people that, ideally are that for the people in our lives too. And what I realized in the conversations that I was having this weekend with my mom and my brother is that I've had an incredible amount of autonomy over my choices. And that's due to a lot of reasons. But the one that I'm talking about today is that I've always been surrounded by the people closest to me, who have taught me and led by example to prioritize who I am, my individuality, and what is right for me, and just allowed me to explore that and not ever feel like I had to be sorry about it. I never felt like I had to pick between choosing for myself or choosing myself or pleasing others. That's not, I know that that's a very common struggle. And I'm not saying I've never had that struggle, but it is not something, especially as a child, when I think that can be really important and impactful. That wasn't something that I felt like I had to consider a whole lot, at least on the surface level. I've always been a very confident decision maker. And yes, some of that is because of who I am as a person. Like, I really think out things. I lean on and trust my instincts, and I make sure that I am very, well informed. But one of the things that allows me to be so confident in in my decisions is that I have the people closest to me who trust me and support my decisions. And they know that I am the one who can make the best decisions for me. And that is incredibly empowering. And I certainly don't take that for granted. And we can't take for granted like how empowering it can be to be that person for the people in our lives too. It's a tricky balance, right? Because of course these people are super important to me, and so that balance comes with prioritizing those relationships, but not letting them define you or weigh too heavily into the decisions that keep you from what you want at the end of the day. It's an interesting point of discussion that I had with my mom and my brother this weekend. And it's something that, comes in and out of our lives in so many different ways. A really simple one is, you think about where you live. I think there's a lot of people who like don't move away or don't take other opportunities because they don't want to be away from family. And obviously there's dozens of variables that come up with any opportunity like that. So I'm not saying, your decision would be the same as mine or whatever, because obviously it's very situational and specific to the circumstances surrounding it. But, for example, I am considering moving halfway across the country, and I'm able to consider that and think about all the ways in which that would be best for me and, my family being my husband and my pets at this point in time, and, my potential future family, without having to, with having the support of my family versus, some people I know have dealt with, whether it's guilt or, I know there's always certain levels of commitment and stuff. So again, it's not as simple of a conversation as just saying like, do whatever you want, leave your family behind. That's not what I'm saying by any means. But there are all kinds of situations that come up where these things can really weigh on us. And sometimes it's as simple as like, what you want to do professionally. Like maybe you really want to be a teacher, but your family is like, teachers don't make enough money and we don't really respect teachers because they don't get paid that much. And clearly I don't think this by any means. I think exactly the opposite. And you should absolutely be a teacher and we should respect teachers and pay them a hell of a lot more. But you get what I'm saying. Like that could be a point of conversation where you would feel like not supported by the people closest to you, but you feel really strongly about what you want to do and what's right for you. So there's all kinds of things that come up that are all part of this individual identity conversation. But I also read this book recently that brought my awareness to it on the other side of the spectrum. It is written by child actor Jeanette McCurdy of Nickelodeon fame, and the book is called I'm Glad My Mom Died. Now, the name certainly is an attention grabber and it has the level of shock value, but this book is so worth your time. It is about someone who experienced the exact opposite of the kind of upbringing that I did. Not in that she didn't feel loved and taken care of, because she did. And just from the title of the book, it's so different and so much more than what you're thinking, just again, on the surface level of hearing that title. But she was completely alienated by the adults in her life, primarily her mother, to live to please her. She grows into a talented, accomplished young adult who has no idea what she wants or who she is. And she talks about all the kinds of struggles that come up with this and working through it. The other angle that she speaks to a lot is being a working actor who seems to have what all actors want: work, right? She's got fame, a big paycheck, but the price that comes with doing work that you are not proud of. And this was really intriguing, to me specifically. It was an important part of her dialogue for me because it is a big reason why I do not personally choose to rely on acting or performance as my primary source of income. One of the many sacrifices that come with it is the lack of autonomy and pride that you feel in your work in an industry that is so unforgiving and competitive in the worst ways, and in ways that make you, again, question who you are and the things that are important to you, that you have to feel grateful just to be grasping at any work and to take what you can get. So at the end of the day, like no amount of money or accolades is worth it if it doesn't align with your personal integrity. And that plays into a big part of her struggles and stuff that she talks about in the book. So without that, like there is no passion to speak of. But this is a great read. It's a great topic of conversation among your friends and loved ones. And I think it just makes you think. It's a good thing to reflect upon and a good way to stay present with yourself. So that's my peace and love point of conversation this week. And go check out that book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, by Jeanette McCurdy. Well, this week in baseball, like I said, if you want to catch up with all the hot stove action, Susie and I have got that for you over at Bourbon in Baseball. But this week in baseball, I'm going to tell you about some other baseball content you should be catching up on as well. This past week on Thursday night, January 25th, we recorded a Babes Galentine's episode where we had 11 of us total on one episode, and we gathered representation from podcasts that are hosted and fully produced by women. And we had lots of different fandoms represented, from the Yankees to the Brewers to the Red Sox to the Astros to the Cardinals. Obviously, I was there. But we talked about baseball as a whole. We talked about women in baseball who we love. We played a really fun little game that opened up conversations about all different players from all around the league. And of course, we wrapped it up with highlighting and featuring these podcasts that are being produced and have so much great content, more content than you probably have time to consume before spring training, but will definitely keep you occupied and happy and content until then. And a lot of the content that they are putting out over there on these podcasts that we featured, I'm specifically thinking of the No Crying in Baseball gals who have been doing this for years at this point. We're really kind of pioneers for all of us in the women in baseball podcasting world. So much of the content that they've put out is evergreen. Like you could go back and listen to episodes that they did 3 years ago about the juice balls conspiracy and like scientists who have evaluated this, and just all the many very interesting, fascinating layers of baseball that you've probably heard, a clip about or read a headline about, but never dug a little deeper into. So all kinds of good stuff over there from, No Crying in Baseball, from There Is Crying in Baseball. Shout out to Rach, Haley, and Sarah Ann, who are putting out all of the good emotional human side of the game over there. The Brewers Babes, who are one of my favorite episodes that we've done here at Peace, Love, and Baseball, was with them. And we've got the Upper Deck podcast, which are Yankees fans, which I'm sure I'll shout out again next week because I'm going to be on an episode with them this coming weekend. I believe we're going to be live on Sunday, 10 a.m. So if you aren't doing anything while you're eating brunch on Sunday morning, tune in. I'll be over there with them. And it was just really cool to be all together and to see how many different just perspectives that we had and takes on the game. Like there's not enough of us, and there's more than enough room for everybody's opinion to be heard, everybody's voice to be heard, because we didn't have a planned script of like, who are you going to pick and what's your answer going to be. And there was just so many different unique things shared that I think was the biggest takeaway for me from it, was like, we're never going to run out of things to talk about when we have these kinds of people with this level of passion and smarts who are just willing to share it with us and allow that level of connection. So that was a really cool thing. Please check that out over on the Babes YouTube channel, or find Babes wherever you get your podcast, and you will come across that as our latest episode. And then this past week, I was also on the Talking About Birds Cardinals podcast to celebrate their 100th episode with really like Cardinals social media royalty, Kyle Reese, the Prospect King, and Daniel Shoptaw, C70, who is putting out all the best blogs and interaction for us along with his podcast. So I just had like a great week of connection and baseball fun. And there's so much good content out there for you to listen to as we're ramping up and waiting for this, never-ending winter to end to get back to baseball season. So that's this week in baseball. Also, this week in baseball, we're talking about the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, it is time for our Atlanta Braves feature. And if you've been around, you might know how this goes by now. I am going to tell you about the history of the Atlanta Braves, did my research for you, put it all in a pretty little bow, gonna spew it out at you now, get you up to speed on the Braves. And then our guest, Rachel, is going to tell you everything that you can't Google about the Atlanta Braves. She is immersed in the culture. She is the Atlanta Braves fandom, and we're going to get it straight from her. But first, let's learn a little bit about the Braves. Let's open our textbooks, kids. The Braves compete in Major League Baseball as a member of the National League East Division. According to Braves.com, the Braves were founded in Boston, Massachusetts in 1871 as the Boston Red Stockings. Before there were the Boston Red Sox, there were the Boston Red Stockings, and now they're the Atlanta Braves. I, for one, did not know this. The club was known by various names until the franchise settled on the Boston Braves in 1912. The Braves are the oldest continuously operating professional sports franchise in North America. The Chicago Cubs are actually a full season older, as they were originally founded in Chicago as the White Stockings in 1870, but the White Stockings did not field a team in 1871 or 72 due to the Great Chicago Fire. So the Braves have played more consecutive seasons. History. After 81 seasons and one World Series title in Boston, the club moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1953. I also had no idea that they were the Milwaukee Braves, and they won a World Series in 1957. Despite the team's success, fan attendance declined. Didn't want to show up for him in Milwaukee, so the club's owners moved the team to Atlanta, Georgia in 1966. The Braves are one of two remaining National League charter franchises that debuted in 1876. The club has won an MLB record 23 divisional titles, 18 National League pennants, and 4 World Series championships. So yeah, overall, they've been a super successful franchise. There's been actually a lot of ups and downs for the Braves along the way, which I did not necessarily realize. We're going to get into that a little bit more. In 1976, the team was purchased by media mogul Ted Turner, who was the owner of WTBS, as a means to keep the team and, of course, one of his main programming staples in Atlanta. So Turner was actually financially unstable at the time, and he used money already paid to the team for their broadcast rights as a down payment. Financially stretched, maybe is the better word, but that's interesting. It was then that the Atlanta Stadium was renamed Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. Turner quickly gained a reputation as a hands-on baseball owner. He had his own way of doing things, that's for sure. Because on May 11th of 1977, he actually appointed himself as manager, but MLB passed a rule in the 1950s barring managers from holding a financial stake in their teams. So Turner was ordered to relinquish the position after one game. He has a losing record because the Braves lost that game 2-1 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Turner used the Braves as a major programming draw for his cable network, making the Braves the first franchise to have a nationwide audience and fan base. And I talk a little bit about this with Rachel, but I remember having the Atlanta Braves on my TV probably more than the Cardinals at certain points throughout my childhood because, yeah, they were a station that was just in every home. WTBS marketed the team as the Atlanta Braves, America's team. And it was a nickname that still sticks in some areas of the country, especially in the South. So I bet there are a lot of Braves fans out there nationwide who just grew up having the accessibility of watching the Braves on TV. And ultimately, that was a very smart move. After 3 straight losing seasons, Bobby Cox, who's a name you might know because he's going to be in and out and be a big impact guy for these Atlanta Braves, over the long haul, Bobby Cox was hired for his first stint as manager for the 1978 season. He promoted the 22-year-old slugger Dale Murphy into the starting lineup. Murphy hit 77 home runs over the next 3 seasons, struggled defensively, He was not necessarily a great catcher or first baseman, but they're trying to make it work with him. And in 1980, he moved to center field. Voila, he's an amazing center fielder. He's got great range out there, hell of an arm. And the Braves had their first winning season since 1974, that year in 1980, in correlation with moving Dale Murphy to center field. Bobby Cox was actually fired after the 1981 season and replaced with Joe Torre, and the Braves attained their first divisional title since 1969. In this winning season, Dale Murphy won both the MVP award and a Gold Glove award, and he also won the MVP the following season. But the Braves began a period of decline that defined them through the 1980s. Yeah, you're like, here they come. They've got this awesome superstar player. Murphy, he's excelling at defense at this point, center field, hitting and running. He was consistently recognized as one of the league's best players throughout this period of time. But the Braves averaged only 65 wins per season between 1985 and 1990. I have a couple fun facts about Dale Murphy. Well, one is like a fun fact, and the other one is a soapbox. Fun fact first, Dale Murphy has, I believe, 8 children, 7 sons and a daughter, and his daughter has a podcast called The Bad Broadcast. It's very popular in certain circles. It's more of like a pop culture podcast. It's definitely geared towards millennial women. So, that's me. But she's super good at it and she's super talented, and she doesn't talk about her dad a whole lot. She's very close with him, but not, specifically, she's not into baseball or anything, but she's an awesome podcaster and she's definitely someone who has inspired me. My second is a soapbox about like, how the hell is Dale Murphy not in the Hall of Fame? This actually gave me some insight in that he was on these like losing Braves teams, that maybe that has something to do with it, but I still don't really get it because it's, really supposed to be about individual player accomplishments, and Dale Murphy's got it. So somebody fix that, please. Let's get back to the Braves. The lowest point came in 1988 when they lost 106 games. That's just not the Braves I know. So I don't think I ever realized that they lost over 100 games. The 1986 season saw the return of Bobby Cox. Now he's the general manager. Okay. Also in the 1986 season, this is when the team stopped using their Native American themed mascot, Chief Nakahoma. And we'll have more on that and the ongoing discussion surrounding the cultural appropriation of the Braves a little later on. The Braves finished the 86 season with the worst record in baseball, 65-97. They trade Dale Murphy to the Phillies. He's aging. He's becoming less of a dominant player all around. But here's where Braves fans can start to get excited about the organization developing young pitchers like Tom Glavine, Steve Avery, and John Smoltz. You might know him, who are now set to become stars. From 1991 to 2005, the Braves were one of the most consistently winning teams in baseball. And this is more my time. These are the Braves that I know, the Braves that so many of you love. They record 14 straight division titles, 5 National League pennants, and a World Series title in 1995. Bobby Cox has been the GM, but he is headed back to the dugout as a manager in the middle of the 1990 season. And in 1990, the Braves hired John Boland Scherholtz Jr. I'm not sure that that's how you say his last name, but he has spent 22 years as the Kansas City Royals general manager, and the Braves bring him in as their new GM to lead their front office. This is also when the Braves used the number 1 overall pick in the 1990 Major League Baseball draft to select Chipper Jones, who became one of the best hitters in the team's history. So now they're led by their dominant young pitching staff. They have an unexpected MVP season of Ron Gant, who goes on to become a St. Louis Cardinal in his later days. But the 1991 Braves team becomes known as the worst to first Braves, and they won the division for the first time since 1982. They took their postseason run all the way to the World Series, where they ultimately lost to the Minnesota Twins. And we talked about this World Series just a couple weeks back in our Twins episode. This series is considered by many to be one of the greatest ever. It was the first time that a team had finished last in the division one year and then ended up in the World Series the next. And both teams in the World Series that year did it, both the Twins and the Braves. Crazy. The Braves made it back to the World Series in 1992. They lost to the Blue Jays, but they signed Greg Maddux coming into 1993, and now they have what all the insiders are agreeing upon as the most dominant pitching staff in baseball. The team won another division title with a franchise best 104-win season, and in 1994, they realigned the National League divisions following the 1993 expansion of teams, and so the Braves moved to the Eastern Division, where they're at now. They were in the NL West before that, which like geographically just clearly makes no sense. But yeah, that's when the Pirates moved to the Central Division as well. The players' strike cut the 1994 season short before the playoffs, and the Braves were not looking too hot that season anyway, so actually kind of better for them in their narrative that maybe that happened. But they were back and better than ever in 1995 when they won the World Series title over the Cleveland Guardians. With this World Series victory, the Braves became the first team in Major League Baseball to win world championships in 3 different cities, and they are still to this day the only team that has done that. They made it to the 1996 and 1999 World Series, which they lost both times to the New York Yankees under the leadership of their former manager, Joe Torre. Biting back, Joe. In October of 1996, Time Warner acquired Ted Turner's Turner Broadcasting System and all of its assets, including its cable channels and the Atlanta Braves. So they had a streak of 14 division titles from 1991 to 2005, 3 in the Western Division and 11 in the Eastern, which was interrupted only by that 1994 when the strike ended the season early. Like I said, worked out fine for them because I think they were trailing the Expos at that point. Like they were like 6 games back from the Expos. So honestly, just kind of helped keep things up and at 'em for the Braves. Pitching was clearly a huge piece of their success, but also Bobby Cox was the Braves manager through it all. And Sherholtz remained the team's GM until after the 2007 season when he was promoted to team president. In December of 2005, the team owner, Time Warner, which inherited the Braves after purchasing Turner Broadcasting Systems in 1996, announced that it was going to be placing the team for sale. So they're like, we just acquired all this. We don't really want to get into baseball ownership. So in February 2007, after more than a year of negotiations, Time Warner agreed to sell the Braves to Liberty Media, which owned a large amount of the stock in Time Warner. Of course, Major League Baseball had to approve this. 75% of baseball owners and the commissioner at the time was Bud Selig had to sign off on that. But the deal included the exchange of the Braves, which were valued at $450 million, along with a hobbyist magazine publishing company and $980 million in cash for 68.5 million shares of Time Warner stock held by Liberty, worth approximately $1.48 billion. Team president Terry McKirk anticipated no change in the front office structure, personnel, or day-to-day operations of the Braves, and Liberty does not participate in the day-to-day operations. So on May 16th, 2007, Major League Baseball's owners approved the sale, and the Braves are now one of only 2 Major League Baseball teams that are under majority corporate ownership. The only National League team. The other team is the Toronto Blue Jays, who are owned by the Canadian media conglomerate Rogers Communications. The Braves did not win another division title until 2013. So after all that winning from 91 to 2005, they've got, it ebbs and flows. Like I told you, there's some good times, there's some bad times. So another downtime and maybe some rebuilding years here for the Braves. But in 2015, we entered the Alex Anthopoulos era. The Braves hired general manager John Coppola, who actually resigned in 2017 after a Major League Baseball investigation found that he was breaching the rules on international signings, and he was banned from baseball. Bye, John. But have no fear, Braves fans, because here comes Alex Anthopoulos. Alex is named the new GM and executive vice president heading into the 2018 season. This is also when the Braves introduced their new mascot, who you might know today, Blooper. There was a variety of takes when Blooper came out. Still not really sure how people feel about him. He's stuck around for a while. What is Blooper? I feel like he's like trying to be the Philly fanatic, but he's not. But he's cute. Like, I'm not mad about it. If you know what Blooper is, get at me. Let me know. And Braves fans, like, how do we feel about Blooper? Because I was not able to find any clarity on that. I should have asked Rachel, but I didn't. So since then, in Alex Anthopoulos' first 6 seasons as the Braves GM, the team has made the playoffs 5 times. They returned to the World Series in 2022, of course. This was the first time that they had been in the World Series, though, since 1999. And they won the World Series over the Houston Astros in 6 games for their 4th World Series title as a franchise. In July of 2023, Liberty Media spun off Atlanta Braves Holdings as a separate publicly traded company. So on January 12th of 2024, the Braves announced that they have extended Alex Anthopoulos just very recently. He's doing all the things for him. So they've extended him. He is going to be their president of baseball operations and general manager through the 2031 season. These days, the Braves front office is best known for locking up a seemingly absurd amount of young players to long-term contracts and making all sorts of complicated strategic trades, but it sure seems to be working for them. My co-host over at Bourbon and Baseball, Susie, has this conspiracy theory that Alex Anthopoulos not only has like a very complex murder board, but that he also has like an island of hostages that somehow has to do with how he makes all of these things work. Anyway, you're going to have to ask her about that. But the more I learn about it and the more crazy things I see the Braves working on that are just somehow working, I'm not ruling it out. Let's talk a little bit about the cultural appropriation that surrounds the Braves before we finish up here. So you might have heard of this thing that they have called the tomahawk chop, where they do this chopping motion. It was adopted by fans of the Atlanta Braves in 1991. Here's what I didn't know. It was actually the Braves organist, Carolyn King, who played the tomahawk song during most of the at-bats for a few seasons. So it finally caught on with the Braves fans when the team started winning, and they used the foam tomahawks that were actually sold at the stadium. And of course, this led to criticism from Native American groups that said it was demeaning to them and called for them to be banned. In response, the Braves public relations director at the time said that it was a proud expression of unification and family. So clearly didn't look to like educate himself or like, take any like very valid opinions into consideration. Not great, but the controversy persisted and it became national news again during the 2019 National League Division Series. So you may or may not know that St. Louis Cardinals relief pitcher Ryan Helsley is a Cherokee Nation member, and he was asked about it. And he said that he found the fans chanting and their arm motions insulting, and that the chop depicts natives, quote, in this kind of caveman type people who aren't intellectual. So this prompted the Braves to stop handing out foam tomahawks. And like also awesome for Ryan Helsley for just answering that head on and being willing to discuss it, because clearly having someone who is a player and, being a more customer facing, I guess is what I'm thinking about it from a business perspective. But obviously the way that he spoke up and addressed it as a member of the Native American community and also a member of the Major League Baseball community was very impactful. So good on you, Ryan Helsley. This prompted the Braves to stop handing out the foam tomahawks, playing the chop music, or showing the chop graphic when the series returned to Atlanta for Game 5. Thanks, Braves. The Braves released a statement saying they would continue to evaluate how we activate elements of our brand as well as the overall in-game experience, and that they would continue a dialogue with those in the Native American community after the postseason concludes. So again, glad that they took note of and took consideration from these voices. And during the offseason, the Braves met with the National Congress of American Indians to start discussing a path forward. According to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, in July of 2020, the team faced more and more pressure to change their name, because this is when the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins announced that they were gonna make a brand shift. The Braves released a statement announcing that discussions were still ongoing about the chop, but the team name would not be changed, and that this was something that, with the resources in the Native American community they had connected with, helped them decide upon. Here's what I personally think we need is just more open dialogue and more communication to fans, but really just like the world and people in the United States about why this is relevant, why this is a topic of conversation, why it's okay for the Braves to be the Atlanta Braves, but it's not okay for the Indians to be the Cleveland Indians, because that's not something that I feel like I can speak to, at least not in a way that is the conversation that we really need to be having. And that's not on Ryan Helsley to educate us on. So some of these conversations, I feel like they're just, again, kind of checking the box, dealing with it when they have the pressure put on them and they feel like they have to. But we'd all be better for these conversations to be more out in the open. And, you know, that's my 2 cents. I personally would like to be more educated and enlightened and just hear more relevant voices around this topic. The stadiums that the Braves have played in are, we mentioned the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium when they first moved to Atlanta from 1966 to 1996. They played at Turner Field from 1997 to 2016, and now they have their home ballpark at Truist Park since 2017. The minor league affiliates for the Braves are the Single-A Augusta Green Jackets in North Augusta, South Carolina. Their High-A team is the Rome Emperors in Rome, Georgia. Their Double-A team is the Mississippi Braves in Pearl, Mississippi. And their Triple-A team is the Gwinnett Stripers in Lawrenceville, Georgia. So now, as promised, we are going to hear from our Braves fan, our resident Braves fan here at Peace, Love, and Baseball, Rach at For the Rach on Twitter. Make sure you go follow her. And let's see what Rach has to tell us about her Atlanta Braves. Well, this week on Peace, Love, and Baseball is our Atlanta Braves feature. And fortunately, we have my window into the world of Atlanta Braves Twitter here with us today. Rachel For the Rach, you might know her as on Twitter, has joined us to give us the down low on the Atlanta Braves and their fan base. Rach, how you doing tonight?
I'm so good. How are you?
Great. I really appreciate you joining us to give us the insight that only a true diehard Braves fan can give on this particular topic, the Atlanta Braves.
I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my first times doing anything like this, and I am glad it is with you. So I'm ready. This is going to be awesome.
Well, let's get straight to the hard-hitting questions here. First things first, we need to know, how did you become a fan of the Atlanta Braves?
Well, I am born and raised in Braves country, which is pretty extensive. I was raised by a father who was a diehard Braves fan his entire life. And then I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, where we had a farm team from the Braves system. And our manager, Brian Snitker, was actually the manager of the Greenville Braves. And so I got to grow up going to these minor league games and seeing him manage the Greenville Braves. And now I get to see him manage the Atlanta Braves. And it is really just so neat.
What do you think it is about baseball? Because we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how we are more fans of baseball as opposed to other sports. What do you think it is about baseball that really speaks to you?
That is a really good question. I think that it has a lot to do with the strategy of baseball. I know that it is a lot more of a quote unquote still sport than most people are used to. You see a lot of football fans and hockey fans who really get into that rumble and tumble type of action on a field. And baseball does tend to be a little bit of a calmer sport, but there is something that lies in the strategy of baseball that really draws me in. We're talking about weather, we're talking about placement on the field, we're talking about speeds and the accuracy and things like that. And just when it all kind of comes together and accumulates into a really, really exciting sport that has just grabbed me from such a young age. I'm talking 5 or 6 years old, that I've just always found absolutely entrancing. I just, when a baseball game is on, when I'm at a baseball game, I am absolutely zoned in on it and always
Yeah.
have been. And I think that that's what it is. I think that the strategy and the sounds of baseball, if that doesn't
Oh,
sound
yeah.
weird, the crack of the bat and all of those things is just really just a place of joy for me and always has been. So
Yeah, the atmosphere of being at a baseball game is, I think,
so
something that you
much.
hear people talk about way more than, other sports obviously have their own atmosphere as well, but I think that's a really good point to bring up, and that all
Absolutely.
baseball fans can certainly relate to. And you're here on a podcast, so you
Yeah,
have the audio crowd that is right there with you,
right.
hearing and appreciating the sounds.
That's where I first fell in love with baseball, was the radio. I would
Yeah.
drive down to Atlanta with my dad to see family, and he always had that Friday night baseball game. He had that Friday night baseball game on the radio, and I remember just so well that nostalgic feeling of almost feeling in a safe place while I was listening to that. And it really is, it is that atmosphere, whether you're there or whether you're watching or whether you're listening. It's always familiar, and it's always, I don't know, it's always a place for joy for me.
Yeah, and the Atlanta Braves are obviously the team that represent baseball and your fandom and your joy.
Mhm.
So I'm interested to get your take on what is maybe something about the Atlanta Braves as a franchise, as an organization, as a team that might make them unique to the other teams in Major League Baseball.
Sure. So I think that one thing that makes us unique is the absolute size of our fan base. You have fans all the way up to Virginia, all the way down to Florida, all the way over to Louisiana. Really, the whole southeast of the United States would be considered Braves country. And so I think that that makes for a really good variety of fans, even though I think people sometimes categorize the South as just being one thing. It is a lot different. I have friends who live in Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, who all kind of have a little bit of a different kind of Southern culture, whether
Mhm.
it's Southern culture or not. So I think the vastness of our fan base is really unique. And also, the history of the Braves being one of the oldest franchises that there is, and the fact that we are, and I could be wrong, but we are the only MLB team that has won a World Series in 3 different cities: Milwaukee, Boston, and Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
So I think that that's a really neat aspect of our fan base. And the game experience in general, the Truist Park and the battery that surrounds it is really a good physical experience that is unique from other parks. And there are a lot of good parks in the United States when it comes to the MLB, but there is really something so neat about what they have built around Truist Park that is so much different from when we were Turner Field in more of downtown Atlanta. And now we're kind of outside of Atlanta, which is nice. And shops and restaurants and the people you get to know there. It really is such a neat little city within a city. And I think that that really is more unique than some of the other experiences that I've had. So.
I have heard that, and certainly, seen that from TV. That is one of the parks that is certainly on my list. But as we were talking about a little bit before we started recording too, is that, everybody thinks as the Braves of being this like really successful, exciting team to watch because
Mhm.
right now they are. And
Right.
obviously they won a World Series in 2021. But you were sharing with me prior to that, it had been over 25 years
Yeah,
since that had happened.
it's been
And
hard.
obviously there are these types of things that you've just shared with us that are the reason that you stayed invested and excited about the team through that whole period of time of your life where you didn't see them making deep postseason runs.
Right. Win or lose, it is always a home feeling. And they make it extremely easy to stay invested and to stay home. And I've never, even in the hard years that we've had, I mean, you can look at this past season. We were so on top in 2023, so far above everybody else. And that felt really great. And then you kind of crumble when you get into that postseason because that changes everything. But really, that home feeling that the Braves give, that team gives, that those guys give, and that the rest of the fans who I'm friends with and who I interact with really give a definition to home when it comes to the Braves and their franchise. And that has been really solely what has brought me from 1995 till here where we are now, post World Series win in 2021. So
Awesome. Very well said. Yeah, I remember growing up, like I grew up in central Illinois, and I was just telling my husband the other night that actually I remember the Braves games being on TV because they had the TV deal with TBS where
right.
like they were on TV and it was way more accessible to watch every single game that they played than it was to even watch, the Cubs or the Cardinals that were the closest teams to me growing up. So I think in that sense, Braves country is spread out even more
Even
than
more than what I
anywhere that you
said.
would consider the South, because there are people that just like that's what was accessible to them, and that was a huge advantage. That was an amazing business move, I guess, if you could think about it that way, that the Braves made at any point in time, because yeah, their reach is very far and wide.
You're
And
so right. I have friends from Pennsylvania, California, the Midwest who that was, if you ask them why they're a Braves fan, die hard, and they seem out of place, it is because of that. And so our fan base really reaches such a huge part of this country that other fan bases really don't, other MLB teams really don't. They're very kind of sanctioned to their own city and surrounding areas, or maybe even their state, and that's great. But I meet way more Florida fans than you would meet Rays or Marlin fans, or
yeah,
and so Braves fans in Florida. So I think that really is such just a neat thing, and that comes from that rich history as well, from the Braves,
definitely.
being in Boston and Milwaukee beforehand. That and the love of the Braves just gets passed down generationally. I really do believe, because I think if my father and my grandfather hadn't been such huge diehard fans and passed down that love to me, that I've now passed down to my daughter. My daughter loves the Braves. She absolutely adores the Braves. She loves going to games. She loves watching games, that I'm now passing on down to her and getting her into this baseball culture and into this fan base. So it's really just such a neat historical thing as well. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
something that's been around for so long before us and will last far longer.
Forever. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, forever.
Well, one of my favorite things to ask fans who are so dialed in like you of other fan bases is about current players that maybe you might be really excited about within the Brave system that us from other fan bases, we've probably never even heard their name, or if we have, we're not really thinking much of it. So is there a current player in the Brave system that you are excited about as a Braves fan that maybe us here of other fan bases don't have on our radar?
Sure. I do. We have a lot of, we are heavy in pitching right now, the Braves. We have been really focused on pitching because that's been a really big um, point of, that's been a big issue for us.
Sure.
And we've really seen that this past season. And so I tend to get more excited about pitchers. But there are a lot of players that I'm excited about. I think AJ Smith-Shawver, who is a pitcher for us, he's got a really, really great future ahead of him. Winans is really great. Darius Vines is really great. But, the Braves just signed an international free agent, Jose Perdomo. He's only 17 years old, and he's such a good line drive hitter. He's gotten a $5 million bonus, which is the biggest our franchise has seen, I believe. And he's an absolutely young and probably it's going to be a slow growth for him through the system, I'm sure. I'm personally excited about Jose Perdomo, but some guys who are really close to the major league field and who we've seen on the major league field, like Smith Shawver and Winans and Darius Fines on the mound, are really exciting, especially when we are really honed in on growing our pitching and strengthening our bullpen. And we've seen some really good prospects traded away this offseason, which has been a little concerning, but and Alex Anthopoulos we trust. I'm really excited to see the growth of some of these guys, even and this might be more of a popular name to some if they know anything about the Braves, but Michael Harris the second, who's center fielder, and he was dealing with an injury all of this season, so I know it was a little difficult to watch him since he really started out so hot. And one of our homegrown boys, which I really love. I love our homegrown boys. He was a Braves fan all of his life, and he's now there. I'm really excited to see him come off of this injury next season, and I'm really hoping that we see some improvement at the plate for him. So he might be on some other people's radar, but I'm excited to see the growth of Mike Harris this season. And we had some bigger news this offseason when we saw, what's his name? Klubnik. I always want to say,
Jared
Kalenic. I always want to say Kubiak, and I have no idea why I'm saying that name. I'm really excited to see what
that's true. I totally forgot about him. Yes. I mean, Alex Anthopoulos has been busy. So that was like one of the first things that he did.
Busy.
That's a really good call out.
He really is such a thief in the night when it comes in. And that, I think, drives a lot of Braves fans nuts. And that's fine. In AA, I trust he got a huge extension this offseason. So that's been really exciting. Personally, I just love him. So I really trust what he's doing. And to see Kelenic come in here. Am I Kelenic? I think.
Kelenic. I might be saying it wrong too.
You know.
Jared. Let's call him Jared.
Jared. So seeing Jared come into our franchise was such a huge surprise to me. Anyway, he wasn't somebody that had on my radar.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what we can do this season and what kind of strength that's going to add to the team. So yeah, I'm excited to see some of these pitchers really strengthen. I'm excited to see what this 17-year-old kid from Venezuela, I believe, is going to, how he's going to work his way up through our farm system and hopefully into the major leagues. This is really such a huge deal that they did scouting wise. $5 million signing bonus is insane. I mean, we saw Ronnie when he came over and got a signing bonus as an international kid. I mean, his was under $1 million.
Yeah.
So this is just giant. And I've heard that he is just a powerhouse. And so I'm excited for the future there. So
those are all really good call outs for different reasons. Obviously, yeah, we're not paying a lot of attention to from outside of the fan base of signings of the international free agents. That is all happening right now and is very exciting. But Michael Harris, like you said, I've heard of him. Mm-hmm. I knew that there was like some buzz around him, but because he has yet to really reach his full potential,
right
now he's back on my radar. So that's awesome. And Jared Kalenic, Jared from the Mariners.
Good old Jared.
He is another one that could be a really sneaky pickup by Anthopoulos, because it seemed like he was somebody who there was so much buzz around, but he never really, he just kind of fizzled out, but hopefully has yet to really blow up. And
yes.
And that's a great one as well.
Things people have tended to forget very quickly is some of the moves that Alex has made that have seemed so crazy to us, but have worked out so well. When Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers and we brought in Matt Olson, there was an uproar when we got rid of when we traded William Contreras. We brought in oh my gosh,
Sean Murphy?
Sean Murphy. Why was I trying to call him? I was trying to call him a completely different name. When we brought in Sean Murphy and we traded William Contreras, people were so up in arms about that. When we got Arcia at shortstop, people were really just so concerned about what are we doing here. And
Yeah.
so the growth that we have seen from even just those three players has been so exciting. And so when I hear a deal that Alex has made that might seem to me like, excuse me, why aren't we going to get Dylan Cease? Or excuse me, why aren't we
Yeah.
signing Montgomery? Or excuse me, anything like that. I just tend to remember that, like, okay, so this guy I think knows what he's doing. He
Yeah.
just does it a little bit slower. He does it on a budget. I always say Braves are balling on a budget. That is what we do. We have all of these guys on a budget, and it works for us because they love playing here. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think all fan bases are a little jealous. On the outside looking in, you can tell the other Braves fans we're a little jealous of that game that Alex Anthopoulos is playing. So my
yeah.
co-host on Bourbon and Baseball, Susie, she always jokes that Alex Anthopoulos has like a murder board, and
Oh, yeah.
like how big is it? How
Yeah.
tight of a web is it? Which I completely believe at this point. But here's what I want to ask you about another kind of like vibes culture question, which I think is really fun to think about. If you could pick one player currently in Major League Baseball who is not on the Braves that you think fits into the culture, it does not have to fill a current need or be at all realistic. Just somebody who you're like, that guy should be an Atlanta Brave. Who would it be?
Okay, so and I have said this until I'm blue in the face to my friends, and I don't know if they all agree with me. Some of them call me silly. Joey Votto. And
Yeah.
I know he is older. His shelf life is kind of running out, and I understand that. But I love Joey, and I love his energy. I love his positivity. He speaks with class always, and just a kind guy, and I always just enjoy him. And I just think that when it comes to like the culture of the Braves and what I see in our guys that we have out there, minus a couple here and there, you really just have such a good, kind group of guys. Travis d'Arnaud is such a kind, classy guy. Matt Olson is such a kind, classy guy. Some of our other leaders there, you just don't really hear many negative things coming out of their mouth. And I
Yeah.
feel like I've always seen that with Joey Votto. I've always loved watching him. And of course, right now when he doesn't have a home, I'm like, can we please adopt him?
Come on over. Yeah.
I would love to see him here. There's also some players who used to be with the Braves who are no longer with the Braves. Soler, I would love to see
Oh,
back.
I
I feel
love
like
him
he
too.
fit in. Yeah, and he fit in so. And of course, I'm a little emotionally attached to him because of our World Series win, and he was
Sure.
such a big factor in that. But I felt like he just fit in really well with the team. Jock Peterson was really, really good energy for us,
Mhm.
kind of in like a fun big brother way.
Yeah.
But I think if I was going to like absolutely had to pick one player, I'm always going to say Joey Votto. I just think that he looks and feels like a Brave. Even if we brought him here and he did nothing for us, it would just be neat to see him here. I just think he'd be such a cool, cool guy to have in Atlanta.
Oh, I cannot argue with that. That's a great answer. All right, Rach, I'm gonna challenge you as we wrap things up here. I am not a baseball fan, or I'm a new baseball fan. I'm looking for a team to root for. Give me your 60-second elevator pitch on why I should be an Atlanta Braves fan.
Okay, I will do my best. So, the Atlanta Braves, first and foremost, look at the lineup. One of our players, I think it was Max Fried, said if you like winning and you like the vibes, come to Atlanta because this is where that is at. We have a GM, we have Alex Anthopoulos, we have Brian Snitker, our manager, we have coaches who truly, truly are just absolutely rooted in the Braves and care about the guys who are out there playing on the field, but also just care about the sport. They love baseball and they protect what baseball is. at all costs. So no matter if we go out there and we win, or we go out there and we get absolutely smacked around by the A's, which should not have happened in 2023, there is such a good morale on in our at our field, on the field, in the stands. There's always, even at home watching, there's always this good morale that every single time we go back onto that field and we start a new series, or we start a new game in a series, it's a new game. And everybody is just happy to be there and to see our guys out there and to watch them do their best. We cheer for them, we cry for them, but at the end of the day, we are all Braves, and we all love Atlanta. We all love Braves country. And you're really, really not going to find that anywhere else the way that you do in Truist, in Atlanta, in Braves country. So that would be my pitch to anybody who doesn't watch baseball. Just give it a chance. Just one chance.
That was more like 90 seconds, but it was really good. So it was worth it. It was
I
worth
knew
that extra 30
I knew
seconds.
I was going to go over. I knew.
I'm like, do I start a countdown?
You
is your
should,
pitch
you should
clock.
absolutely post, because there's no way. I've never even heard of 60 seconds in my life. There's no way.
As I taught fitness for a long time, so I like have it, it's very ingrained in my like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, like those increments are like, it's just something that I feel. But I think maybe in later interviews, now that I'm doing more of these, I'm just going to put 60 seconds up on the screen, and it's going to like create a whole different type of anxiety, because I feel like you were able to speak just more like fluently and, you know, at ease when you don't have that clock. But it might give people an idea of what the pitchers feel like when they see that clock these days.
I know. You should have a pitch clock up here.
All right.
And then you should each time take away from that, so you really know what it's like to have a pitch clock.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Sorry, it used to be 60 seconds. Now it's 50.
No.
Well, just a fair warning, if you come back, that might be a thing. So we'll see.
Fine.
But Rach, tell us where we can follow you on social media.
You can follow me on Twitter. I am at For the Rach. And that's really my main social media is right there. You can find me on Instagram at For the Rach and things like that. But my main social media is Twitter. So, or X, or whatever it is now. So yeah,
it's Twitter. It's Twitter forever here at Peace, Love, and Baseball. So.
There you go, Twitter.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your Atlanta Braves fandom with us today. And make sure that you head over to Twitter and follow at For the Rach for all the best Braves and just baseball takes as a whole, because I do love how you said it perfectly, that the Braves are, you know, they're obviously a very historic franchise, as many of the teams are, but you can tell that they love and respect the game, and playing the game the right way is a big part of that franchise. So I think you said that very well. And thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That'll do it for us this week on Peace, Love, and Baseball. Thank you for joining us for our Braves feature. Make sure that you go follow our resident Braves fan, Rachel, at For the Rach on Twitter. Of course, her social media info is in the show notes, so you can find it there. And you can also find us on Twitter, well, me on Twitter, at KBirdTweets. That's BURD tweets. We are on Instagram at peace.love.baseball. And we got a Facebook page called Peace, Love, and Baseball. Hey, if you are watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, give us a little like, leave something in the comments. If you have a thought that is relevant to the discussions that we're having today, you have a suggestion for a topic, you can always hit me up on social media for all of that as well. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you're subscribed so that the next week's episode will populate in your feed for you. And you can give us a nice 5-star rating there. Maybe leave a review if you would be so kind. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next week for more peace, love, and baseball.